I get it. You cannot believe you're going to the big house, as my brother liked to say. Like you, I never imagined in a million years I would be self-surrendering to federal prison, though you are much different from me because when I was at your stage of the journey, I was not preparing. I was eating, blaming other people. Sometimes it just feels better to blame other people. Let's acknowledge and own that. Even when my family would try to help me prepare, like my wonderful mom sending me my now business partner Michael Santos blogs, she would send me his blogs as quickly as it hit my inbox. I would hit the big delete. No interest. Didn't want to read blogs from a dude that had been in jail for 20 years. And those failed preparations, of course, made life harder for my family, but it also made it harder for me because when I surrendered to prison, I made bad choices. Through fortune and luck, I didn't get caught. And on that second day, I found a mentor, Michael, who helped guide me through the journey. Without that, more problems were going to follow. And I don't want you to have any more troubles. I will tell you the great news is now that you've been sentenced, you have clarity. How hard was it waiting and wondering what the sentence is going to be? Look at how much you've already endured. And I can promise you it gets easier on the inside because it's clearly defined. You have a beginning and an end date. The hardest part you will most likely see if you are not prepared is coming home with a sullied reputation, rebuilding, rebranding, starting over while in the halfway house and on probation. So to the extent that our team can help you overcome those obstacles, we want to. We want to help you. And we're so grateful that you're here. And I know your most valuable asset is your time, and I will prove worthy of it. And if you're new to our community, welcome. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, and comment. I'm going to cover 10 things you should consider doing before you surrender to federal prison. And these tips are rooted, tips isn't the right word. These strategies, these ideas are rooted in everything our team has done. And don't forget, we would never ask you to do anything our team has not done, and document it. So now that you've been sentenced and you're getting ready to go in, I would like you or encourage you to do exactly what federal judges tell us you should do. You should continue to document your plans, what it is you plan to do while in prison. You need to engineer and create this release plan. What are you going to do in prison? Why did you take that program? Why did you read that book? If you have a network, how are they vested in your success? What are your plans after federal prison? Does it make more sense that your probation officer is going to approve your job in the halfway house or on probation if you show there's a documented history of it? Think about that for a moment. I have shared before that I spoke with a federal judge who said to me, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. It is foolish to expect that you're going to go to the halfway house, tell a 23-year-old kid who works in the halfway house, who barely has a GED, who has power over you. It's insane to think you're going to say to them, yeah, I just want to go be an entrepreneur. I just want to work for myself. I've never had a job before. I'm an entrepreneur. Oh, I know I owe $3.5 million in restitution, but no, I'm not going to go work at KFC. I have an MBA. That's beneath my skill set. You know what they're going to say? Would you like to go back to prison by 5 p.m.? Because I could have the marshals here in about 15 minutes. Or you can go work the job that we say you're going to work. So the sooner you begin to memorialize and document what it is you plan to do in prison, and then follow through, and if you ain't going to follow through, don't write it. But the sooner you begin to memorialize and document what it is you're going to do in prison, build upon it and share it with stakeholders, your judge, your probation officer, who I know you have yet to meet, you'll find a way to get it to him. If I did in 2008, you can too. Warden, family, friends, funders, potential business partners. Share it with everyone, presuming it has the right message. Why? Because people presume you're going to go to federal prison and complain and blame and waste the experience with table games, exercise, because they think you're going to a country club. Be different, and you're only different if you memorialize and document that journey. Some release plans could be a book, like Lessons from Prison that hangs in my office, whether it's a manuscript or something smaller. Create it. Number 2, I want you to establish a primary point of contact. You need someone who's going to manage your affairs on the outside, someone who's going to manage your visitation list, financial affairs. I had a power of attorney, which was very helpful. When you surrender, they may ask you a question. Who do we notify in case something happens here? Or what's the contact information? You'll probably be thinking, I'm in a minimum security camp. What's going to happen here? They have to ask you before you go on, establish who that person is going to be and make sure they're committed to the task. What you don't want is people get approved to visit and they're randomly showing up, and you're blowing through all your phone minutes. Are you coming on Friday? Or you got to come on Saturday, next week and this and that. Have someone on the outside coordinate that for you. If you do, life will be easier, and you should be very appreciative of that person because they will absolutely be serving that prison term alongside you. Number, trace. I want you to understand the financial implications that accompany going to federal prison if you have a fine, restitution, or forfeiture. What you don't want to do, let's just say you owe $1 million and you're going for 2 years. You don't want to show up with all of the money you expect to sustain you throughout your journey, because once your case manager sees how much you came in with, they're going to take a lion's share of it for restitution. So I would encourage you that first month to surrender with $300 or $400, no more. But you need to be prepared for the fact that if you owe money, you will be a part of what's called FRP, Financial Responsibility Program, and they will be taking payments to pay victims. And if you complain about it, problems follow. They can move your desired bunk, take away your job. If you've told the judge, I accept responsibility, I'm going to make my victims whole, it probably makes sense for you to pay whatever they tell you to pay in prison, but be prepared. The more you come in with, the more they're potentially going to take. And you do have legislators, both Democrat and Republican, really coming down on restitution and how much some prisoners have on their books. And I think it was R. Kelly who had $38,000 or so in his commissary account. And they're like, why is all this money here? That should go to victims. The more you have, the more they may take. Embrace it and endure it. In fact, it's part of the reason so many prisoners will have money go to other prisoners' books, engage in that prison hustle to expand their commissary. We have I know people that spend $1,000 a month in prison, but they do it to hide how much is coming on their books so they don't have to pay more for restitution. You got to make that decision. Before you go in, I would encourage you to create a very deliberate reading list. There are a number of people in prison who will say, I've read 30, 40, 50 books, and then I'll ask them, well, why did you read the book? What did you learn from the book? How will the book help you moving forward? Did you document what you've learned in a release plan? And many of them say, I'm not sure. I liked it. It was a good book, but I'm not really sure. I don't know. It was a good book. I learned some things from it. What? So I want you to create a deliberate reading list that relates to the life you want to live after prison. Develop that list that helps you get closer to what it is you want. When I was in prison, I read books, or prison-related books, philosophy, ethics, books that related to the career I wanted to build as a consultant and as a corporate ethics speaker on ethics and white-collar crime. If you're reading books that don't relate to the life you want to live after prison, and presuming you're not like a multimillionaire and you never have to work again, if you're reading books that don't relate to the life you want to live after prison, you're just kind of like watching a movie. You might as well be watching a movie. You want to have a deliberate note-taking strategy, and that comes back to having a primary point of contact. In my case, at 33 without a wife and kids, I would write book reports. I would handwrite them. I would send them home to my mom. She's awesome. She would type it up and send it back to me, and I would study them. In fact, I would memorize them. So my initial lectures at USC or Stanford or wherever I spoke really started from what I did in federal prison, the books I read. I didn't speak with notes or a PowerPoint. I just spoke, and I was able to remember so much of what I read because I had deliberate note-taking strategy. So it's one thing to say you're a reader, and there's so many people in prison who call me and say, I read 1,000 books in prison. What'd you learn from it? If you don't document it, you're wasting time. Number 5, I want you to prepare to turn over your business, but also learn how to manage a business from prison. There are so many people that are like, I've got this great business, but I'm shutting it down. Why? Well, I was told you can't run a business from prison. Who told you that? Of course, you want to understand Bureau of Prisons policy, but presuming you're willing to invest the time and document and build what your existing business is in your release plan, who's running that business now, how the business will exist while you're in prison. If you're very authentic and transparent about what the business is in front of staff and case managers, you have much more ability to actually influence it. Indeed, my whole business was built online. There's a website I don't even maintain anymore where every blog I wrote in federal prison still exists from 2008. Our team still gets calls from people, and they will hire us after reading a blog I wrote on a Tuesday in federal prison in February 2009. April 2009. It's crazy. Why? Back to number 1. I documented my journey, I engineered my release plan, and I put it out there for the world to see. That was my business, including ways I plan to monetize this business and grow it and help justice-impacted people. Hopefully someone like you, if you'd like to schedule a call with our team. Regardless, do not buy into this mistaken presumption you cannot run or contribute to a business in prison. If you understand policy, it's possible. Number 6, I want you to prepare personal belongings, as little as that actually might be. In my case, as articulated in Lessons from Prison, I tried to get in with a pair of shoes I bought. They were taken. I tried to get in with a watch I bought on the commissary list. the watch was taken. I was able to surrender with my contact list. I did not have any medications with me, but if you have medications, you should surrender with those medications. It helps if they're listed in your probation report. It makes it more likely that you're going to get the medications. It's also a good idea, I'm going to touch on this in a moment, of understanding the BOP formulary list and what you will and will not get on the inside. But it's a good idea to prepare for how much money you're planning to spend, what you're going to bring, what you're going to wear. If you can understand this and get it out of the way now, you can just check little things off your list. Number 7, back to understanding medical preparations. I would love to tell you the Bureau of Prisons is phenomenal in healthcare. If I said that, I would be lying to you. I know many of you have health issues and hoped you'd avoid prison or get a shorter sentence because of these health issues, though I know your judge might have said to you, I think the Bureau of Prisons is equipped to manage your health issues. Not great. So as you prepare to go in, there's a few things that you can do. Make sure you work with your doctor to get all of your medications in order. And yes, they should be listed in your probation report. If you do have some health issues, to the extent that you can get healthier now, whether it's exercise or diet, it will help you because it is a transition to the minimum security camp. You're in a big dorm. People tend to get sick a lot in those early months just because you're in a new environment around so many people. And so to the extent that you can manage your health now, you're going to be stronger. You're going to feel better, and it won't feel like such a shock. I'm not a physician, though many people in our community will work with their physician, or in many instances speak with Carol Santos, Michael's wife on our team, who's a nurse, and help them understand what the BOP practices for healthcare and the formulary and what's likely in the transition, because it can be a very big shock if you're used to a medication and you're no longer going to get it. It probably makes sense to prepare for that now because it's a big enough adjustment. Anyway, number 8, develop a personal communication plan. There's a mistake that some people make where they're very rambunctious, very excited. They're going to prison. They have these big goals, these big aspirations. I'm going to write every single day. And then they don't. So they make this commitment to their family or their network about what they're going to do, and they don't do it. And they kind of fall into the pestilence of prison. They are influenced by other people. Like, don't worry, prepare when you have 6 months to the halfway house. You just got here, relax, enjoy yourself, go to movie night. They don't get going. It's akin to what I filmed in a YouTube short earlier today about this U-shaped curve, right? The U-shaped curve, you surrender to prison and it's new and you have anxiety and you're kind of scared. But eventually you begin to descend this U as you get comfortable with prison. And then halfway through your prison term or the midway point, you're at the bottom of this metaphorical U, right? It's the easiest part of the journey. You understand prison. You're avoiding problems. You got the best job, the best bunk. But eventually you're going to begin ascending this U. And as you ascend the U, the complications of post-prison life come into your mind 24 hours a day, mortgage, bills, rent, restitution. How am I going to sustain myself without my medical or law license? So as you contemplate what sort of communication plan you're going to have, I would encourage you to think about ascending that U the day you get to federal prison, which means you're going to prepare well. So when you hit the other side, you're not going to be freaked out. And it's easier to ascend the U if you have a documented plan that shows growth through prison. The problem is, it requires work. And there's a lot of people that will give you happy talk, that will assure you that you can get a guaranteed release date or certainty be at something. I'm not going to give you any happy talk, and I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. If your goal is an earlier release and more success after prison, it ain't going to happen without evidence. It's that simple. And that should include a deliberate communication plan, but make a commitment that you could follow through to. You might not want to write every day like Michael Santos or me. But if you're not doing it, you're weaker. And don't tell me, by the way, that you can't spend 15 or 20 minutes a day to write something productive in prison. Don't tell me you're too busy. You won't be too busy. You're just choosing not to do it. And if that's the case, own it. Fine. Number 9, develop your quadrant guide for decision making. We could talk about this for days. We won't. But Michael taught this class in prison. It was so profound. So there's this quadrant. Certainly he didn't originate it, but he taught it very well. You have behaviors in prison. You need to think about them now. What are you going to do all day in prison? You have a lot of time in federal prison. Besides working, which could be an hour a day, and sleeping and exercising, you have a ton of time. And of course, the highest value inside of these prisons tends to be boredom. So you need to assess right now, what do you plan to do? So there's high risk, high reward behaviors, low risk, high reward. You understand the quadrant. So what are some examples of high risk and high reward? Well, you could argue it is very high risk, high reward to aggressively document the journey, to learn how to manage a business in prison, to write online, to publish, to put your release plan online for the world to see. It's a high reward because you're going to be sharing this great work with stakeholders who will influence your release and what happens after prison. It's a little higher risk because you're putting it out there for the world to see. It takes courage to write something and have someone read it and question it. There'll be people that will make fun of you and mock you, like people make fun of Michael Santos and me. You write book reports. What are you, 3 in 3rd grade? No, I'm not in 3rd grade. This is what I do to memorialize it, to learn it, and to share with people how I'm building a journey. I'm memorializing my journey through prison. You need to assess spending all day in the TV room, probably low risk, low reward. Some people would tell you it's low reward, high risk, because there's a lot of problems that come in the TV room. The quadrant theory is subjective. My point is, before you surrender to prison, you should probably spend time with your family, write it out. High risk, high reward, low risk. Put it all there and say, how do I want to spend my day? And how to my family can you hold me accountable to ensure that I'm engaging in behaviors that are all high reward? These are things that would have helped me. And I'm sure these were the blogs that Michael Santos was writing, and the same blogs my mom sent to me before I went to prison that I threw in the trash. And last but not least, before you go in, I want you to begin to exercise and develop a health plan. There's a lot of people like me who go to prison out of shape. They haven't exercised. The stress of fighting their case over an extended period of time, they're just not focused on exercise. Then they get there and they're like, oh my God, I'm 50, 60, 70 yards from this camp. I want to become an Olympic athlete. I have so much time to exercise. Here's the problem. If you go from no exercise to a lot of exercise, you're going to get hurt quickly. And I saw a ton of that. Guys just like jump in crazily and they get hurt. That's number one. Number two, I want you in federal prison to exercise in dosages you can maintain when you come home. Too many people exercise for 7, 8, 9 hours a day in prison. Sounds crazy, but it's true. They come home, they have a job, they exercise for 2 hours a day, or they stop totally, and all of the weight they have lost comes back on. So begin to exercise right now before you go to prison. Carry that over to the inside. Don't get hurt, because if you get hurt in federal prison, you will never be the same. And yes, I became a runner in prison, but I ran slowly around that track. I wasn't doing soccer or softball, or things that could really get you hurt. Indeed, I saw a lot of guys get hurt, and they were never the same. There we have it. 10 things you should begin doing before you go to federal prison. As I wrap up, and as a reminder, if you want access to our calculator to estimate exactly how long you could serve with RDAP and the First Step Act, presuming you avoid disciplinary infractions, including good time, I'll put up a link to use our calendar. If you'd like a copy of Lessons from Prison, the updated version, through our audible.com account, I'm happy to send it to you at my expense. It's just your time to listen to it. Thank you for joining our community. I hope you found a lot of value in this video. Bye-bye.